Hello and welcome to Up the Turnpike, your source for New York Islanders content, not just on YouTube, but it's a podcast. Go to patreon.com/uptheturnpike, subscribe for podcasts twice a week, plus a Friday six-pack, plus an exclusive Discord channel, plus plus. Head over there now and sign up today. In today's video, we're getting ready for the NHL Draft on Friday, June 28th. And so what I decided to do is make a short video every day in the lead up until day one of the draft, looking back at our last 5 years of draft picks to see where they are and how they're doing. Because while some of you might very well know how they're doing and where they are, I think quite a few of us don't know. So let's take that chance now to look back at the last couple of drafts. And today what we're looking at is the most recent draft for the Islanders, 2023, where we drafted in the second round, Danny Nelson. In the fourth round, Yessi Nurmi. In the fifth round, Justin Gill. Sixth round, Zack Schultz, and Dennis Good Bog in the seventh round. So let's look at those guys individually one by one. So Danny Nelson plays for Notre Dame right now. I don't know why I was going to flub that. And so I've got a handy dandy little tool here that I want to show you that helps us kind of conceptualize how they're doing right now. And so I can find any Islander prospect, what I term a prospect anyways. And so I will go find Danny Nelson. It should be in alphabetical order. It is not. There we go. So Danny Nelson. And so what this graph you're seeing on the right shows the normal progression for what is in blue a first line player, in red a second line player, and in yellow a third line player. In green is what we've got of the player we're currently looking at. So Danny Nelson has seen his NHLE. So that's the NHL equivalent. If you don't know what NHLE means or is, it's basically a stat that kind of puts all of the different leagues on the same pedestal. And so it kind of goes, if you've scored 20 points in 20 games at the NCAA level, how does that compare to a guy who scored 20 points in 20 games at the SHL level? It all boils it down to one number, what that would translate to if that player jumped from their specific league into the NHL in the very next year. And so in this case, Danny Nelson went from a 1 NHLE in his draft minus 1 year to a 3 NHLE to a 12.5 NHLE, really round that up to 12.6 or 13 if you want whole numbers, in his draft plus 1 year playing for Notre Dame. And as you can see from this graph here, is that Danny Nelson is trending towards, at the very least, a third line player. He is on par with where a third line player should be right now in terms of their development. And he's not too far off from a second line player either. We're talking about like maybe 3 NHLE difference here between where Danny Nelson is now and what a second line player would be, or what you would expect a second line player to be at right now. So he's still quite young and could grow obviously even more. He's still going to be playing at Notre Dame this year. He's probably going to take a step up in the rotation and play even more minutes, more important minutes for them. So things with Danny Nelson are going well as it stands today. So good job by him. He's trending towards, at the very least, a third line player. And I know he's a second round pick, so maybe you're expecting a little bit more, but don't. Not to say that he can't be a second line player. It's just when you get into the second round, what you're really trying to grab is, do we have an NHLer here? Can he play full-time at the NHL? So far, I imagine that Danny Nelson will play at the NHL level. It's just figuring out where that ceiling is. So good job on that second round pick. When it comes to our next pick, that was Yessi Nurmi, right? Fourth round pick, played for Coco this year. As you all know, he signed his ELC with the New York Islanders and will be playing in Bridgeport this year. I fully expected him to, once the contract was signed, to go back to Coco and play on loan for a year, kind of like what Callie Odelius was doing. But no, he's going straight into North American hockey, which is great. We'll take that, man. Like, you want this kid to develop into a North American player, might as well play him in the North American game as soon as humanly possible. Now, when it comes to his not his comparable, but comes to how he's trending, it might not look great. And let me justify that in a second here. This is not in alphabetical order. That sucks. Yessi Nurmi. Now, look at that line. That stinks, right? He's barely off the ground here. You're looking at that green line. It is barely off the ground in his draft plus 1 year. Went from 0.4, 1.6 to 2.4. But the thing with Yessi Nurmi this year is that he barely played. He played 19 games for Coco. He suffered an injury at the beginning of the year, missed, I believe it was 4 months in total. He didn't play a whole lot. And you also have to remember he's playing at the legal level. He's playing with full-grown 30-plus-year-old men, not 16 to 17-year-old kids. He is a 19-year-old, okay? So he's not getting a ton of minutes. He's playing on their third line. And by that metric, he's not getting a ton of production either. What I saw from him is a lot of speed, a lot of forechecking. That's going to do him very well in North America. It's just, can he get on the end of a couple of points? I like his shot. His shot is going to be okay. I expect his line, if you remember, is near the bottom, this green line. I expect it to jump up quite a bit next year. I'm not going to say he's going to be a monster at the AHL level. There's no way for me to know that. But I think he's going to have an okay year at the AHL level. And even if it doesn't, or even if he doesn't, we have to remember, jumping from the Liga level to the North American pros, even if it's just the AHL, is a big jump. It really is. Different game altogether. And as a 19, 20-year-old, it's going to be difficult for him, okay? So I still expect that line to go up in his D+2 year. All right. From Yessi Nurmi, we've got Justin Gill, the guy who decimated the QMJHL maybe not decimated, but had a really good year at the QMJHL level last year. So if I bring up Justin Gill, of course, again, harder to find. There he is. Oh, they're all in order of draft. Okay, perfect. So Justin Gill, look at this. This is interesting. He starts off in his D-1 as basically a second line player. In his draft year, playing at a second line player pace. Now you might be wondering why the heck, or how the heck did we get this guy in the fifth round then? He was an overager. He was an older player at the QMJHL level. So that production, take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. Not a ton, a little bit. And now he didn't take a step back per se. If we flip back to the graph here, he didn't necessarily take a step back. He may have taken a small step forward, which you would have liked to have seen more from him. Because if you remember William Zuffel, kind of same situation, right? 5th round draft pick, older prospect, and put up a ton of production. Well, William Zuffel in his couple of years, look at that. In his first 3 years, Justin Gill is already outproducing him in terms of NHLE. So that's big. That's very big for Justin Gill. Now, I am not a particular fan of his game per se. I know some others are. They like his tenacity, his ability to get on top of players, his physicality, his defensive awareness is pretty good. So a lot of players rate, a lot of people rate that quite highly. I think there's quite a few gaps in his game, specifically defensively. I'd like to be proven wrong, but it's already really cool to see what is a 5th round pick trending to be like a third liner already. So huge stuff from him. He was playing the QMJHL level last year. I don't believe he is yet to receive his entry level contract. Let me just check while I do this right meow. I don't think he received his entry level contract just yet. Where are we here? He did not. They have until June 1st, 2025 to sign him to an entry-level contract, so they don't need to do it right meow. I would expect him to sign that ELC any second now. Any second, Justin Gill signs his ELC with the Islanders. It'd be wild if he didn't. All right. From Justin Gill, we have defenseman Zack Schultz for Wisconsin University. Zack Schultz here, 6th round pick, 177th overall. Now, I will say, when it comes to this graph, it's not going to look pretty for defensemen already, because defensemen just don't score as often as forwards do. And it won't be pretty for defensive defensemen like Justin Gill, because not only is he a defenseman, so he doesn't put up a lot of points, but his role doesn't lead to a lot of points either. It's one of the failures of NHLE. It doesn't capture players who play a little bit of a more defensive role here. So when it comes to Zack Schultz, not pretty, right? Not pretty at all. Just not doing a whole lot. I'm not sure why it's not capturing his D+1, but I'll get into that maybe a little bit later. I'll try to fix that as we're talking about Dennis Good Bog. But yeah, so he's a defensive defenseman. Played for Team USA. I'm not super high on Zack Schultz. I'm really not. I need to see a whole lot more. He was like 3rd pair defenseman for Wisconsin, so you didn't see a whole lot of him. there's nothing wrong with his game per se. It's just there's not enough there to say like that's going to be an NHLer. So I'm not really sure what else to say about Zack Schultz. Still going to play at Wisconsin next year. Still going to be a pretty good player for them. I'm sure he's going to also take a step up into the rotation, maybe play into the top 4 as their shutdown D, perhaps. But remains to be seen. So Zack Schultz closed out the year. My internet is being super slow. 6 points in 34 games for the University of Wisconsin. So not so bad for a defensive defenseman. All right. Final one here, 7th round pick, Dennis Good Bog. You remember I would have spoken about him or spoken to him directly on our channel beforehand. Not this one, but for my previous channel that I'm kind of amalgamating here. Anyways, Dennis Good Bog, defenseman, played for AIK. Really played for a ton of teams. He played for, let me just get it straight here. Okay, AIK, the AIK under 20s. He played for Vallentuna, for Vaspi, and Östersunds. Now, I'm not pronouncing those names properly, so don't put me on the cross for it, but he's played for 4 different teams this year. So he didn't get a whole lot of runway with any one particular team. He also had a little bit of an injury. Not much, but a little bit. The most he's played for a team in 23-24 was 18 games. And he's also a defenseman, doesn't score a lot of points, so the production rate is going to be low. Now, if we go back here to the table and we pull up Zack Schultz, Dennis Good Bog, also not a whole lot there. Moving up better than Zack Schultz in terms of production, but still not moving up enough here. But he is a defenseman, so take that with a grain of salt. He should still be playing for, I was flipping it to AIK there, for Östersunds. I don't know how to pronounce it. He should be playing for the last team he played for next year. As far as I know, that's where he's going to stay. But who the heck knows with this kid? He's played again for 4 different teams. So we have no idea. Now that's your 2023, draft class. Okay, not a whole lot of movement there. Obviously not a ton to talk about in terms of growth either, because you are talking about a team or a bunch of players who were just drafted a year ago. So not much to go on there, but something to keep forward. And now we know who they all are. So thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for following. Sign up for the Patreon, patreon.com/uptheturnpike for all your New York Islanders podcast needs. Thank you, thank you, thank you.